Well, I hope you save that list of what all these names, these letters mean, because you're going to need it again today. I'll give you a hint. We're starting with E. And E, you'll recall, stands for, wait for it, Edmund Burke. I should have known that one. All right. I understand, he's saying, this is E. Edmund Burke speaking. I understand the hogshead of claret, which this society was favored with by our friend the Dean, is nearly out. I think he should be written to send another of the same kind. Let the request be made with a happy ambiguity of expression, so that we may have the chance of his sending it also as a present. Johnson said, I am willing to offer my services as secretary on this occasion. P, which I believe stands for painter, but I forget what his actual name is saying now. As many as are for Dr. Johnson being secretary, hold up your hands. Carried unanimously. Boswell said at this point, I said, he will be our dictator. Johnson answered, no, the company is to dictate to me. I am only to write for wine, and I am quite disinterested as I drink none. I shall not be suspected of having forged the application. I am no more than humble scribe. He said, then you shall prescribe. Boswell said, very well. The first play of words today, I guess. J answered, no, the bulls in Ireland. Johnson said, were I your dictator, you should have no wine. It would be my business. Cavere no quid detrimente republica capret. To take care that the state suffers no harm. And wine is dangerous. Rome was ruined by luxury. He answered to this, if you allow no wine as dictator, you shall not have me for your master of horse. I'm trying to figure out what this guy said when he said the bulls in Ireland. I guess he was saying that it was a pun that they had earlier. I don't remember that. Seems like a non sequitur in here right now. All right. Okay, so I guess we're done with that. I could have just read that last little paragraph. I didn't realize that whole scene was ending so soon. I apologize. Yeah, you can now recycle or throw out that note of the names because we don't need it anymore. Or you could, frame it on your refrigerator for posterity. On Saturday, April 4th, I drank tea with Johnson at Dr. Taylor's, where he had dined. He entertained us with an account of a tragedy written by a Dr. Kennedy, not the Lisbon physician. The catastrophe of it, said he, was that a king who was jealous of his queen with his prime minister, castrated himself. There's a footnote here from Boswell about castrated himself. The reverse of this story of Camambus, on which Mr. David Hume told Lord Macartney that a friend of his had written a tragedy. It is, however, possible that I may have been inaccurate in my perception of what Dr. Johnson related, and that he may have been talking of the same ludicrous tragical subjects that Mr. Hume had mentioned. Now, a further footnote from editor M. The story of Camambus, which was originally told by Lucian, may be found in Bayle's dictionary. Anyway, back to, I guess this, talking about this tragedy was actually shown about in manuscript to several people, and among others to Mr. Fitzherbert, who repeated to me 2 lines of the prologue. I think this is Johnson speaking. Now he's quoting this prologue. Our hero's fate we have but gently touched. The fair might blame us if it were less couched. Interesting here. Eunuch means keeper of the couch. So I guess that's a play on couched, referring to eunuchs. Perhaps that's just me guessing here. Talking about a guy who's castrated himself. Now, this is Johnson speaking. It is hardly to be believed what absurd and indecent images men will introduce into their writings without being sensible of the absurdity and indecency. I remember Lord Orrery told me that there was a pamphlet written against Sir Robert Walpole, the whole of which was an allegory on the phallic obscenity. This Duchess of Buckingham asked Lord Orrery who this person was. He answered he did not know. She said she would send to Mr. Pulteney, who, she supposed, could inform her. So then, to prevent her from making herself ridiculous, Lord Orrery sent her Grace a note in which he gave her to understand what was meant. Johnson was very silent this evening, and read in a variety of books, suddenly throwing down one and taking up another. He talked of going to Streatham that night. Taylor said, "You'll be robbed if you do, or you must shoot a highwayman. Now, I would rather be robbed than do that. I would not shoot a highwayman." Johnson answered, "But I would rather shoot him in the instant when he is attempting to rob me than afterwards swear against him at the Old Bailey to take away his life after he has robbed me. I am sure I am right in the one case than in the other. I may be mistaken as to the man when I swear. I cannot be mistaken if I shoot him in the act. Besides, we feel lessened reluctance to take away a man's life when we are heated by the injury, than to do it at a distance of time by an oath after we have cooled." I said, "So, sir, you would rather act from the motive of private passion than of that of public advantage?" Johnson answered, "Nay, sir, when I shoot the highwayman, I act from both." I said, very well. There is no catching him." Johnson said, "At the same time, one does not know what to say, for perhaps one may, a year after, hang himself from uneasiness for having shot a man. Few minds are fit to be trusted with so great a thing." I said, "Then, sir, you would not shoot him?" Johnson answered, "But I might be vexed afterwards for that, too." Now, a footnote here about a hanging yourself. The late Duke of Montrose was generally said to have been uneasy on that account. That is, condemning someone to die. But I can contradict the report from his Grace's own authority, as he used to admit to me to very easy conversation with him. I took the liberty to introduce the subject. His Grace told me that when riding one night near London, he was attacked by two highwaymen on horseback, and that he instantly shot one of them, upon which the other galloped off. That his servant, who was very well mounted, proposed to pursue him and take him, but that his Grace said, "No, we have had enough. We have had blood enough. I hope the man may live to repent." His Grace, upon my presuming to put the question, assured me that his mind was not at all clouded by what he had thus done in self-defense. Thrale's carriage not having come for him as he expected, I accompanied him some part of the way home to his house. I told him that I had talked of him to Mr. Dunning a few days before, and had said that in his company we did not so much interchange conversation as listen to him, and that Dunning observed upon this, "One is always willing to listen to Dr. Johnson." To which I answered, "That is a great deal from you, sir." Okay, so I was a little confused there. I thought he was talking with Thrale, but they were waiting for Thrale's carriage to pick up Johnson. They were just confusing me with these pronouns. All right. "Yes, sir," said Johnson, "a great deal indeed. Here is a man willing to listen, to whom the world is listening all the rest of the year." I answered, "I think, sir, it is right to tell one man of such a handsome thing, which has been said of him by another. It tends to increase benevolence." Johnson answered, "Undoubtedly it is right, sir." On Tuesday, April 7th, I breakfasted with Johnson at his house. He said nobody was content. I mentioned to him a respectable person. It says here in a footnote, this respectable person is Lord Arnleck, who I believe, I always forget to look this up, but I'm just going to tell myself, at least, I'm fairly sure it's Boswell's father. I mentioned to him a respectable person in Scotland whom he knew, and I asserted that I really believed he was always content. Johnson answered, No, sir, he is not content with the present. He is always some new scheme, some new plantation, something which is future. You know he was not content as a widower, for he married again. I answered, but he is not restless. Johnson answered, Sir, he is only locally at rest. A chemist is locally at rest, but his mind is hard at work. This gentleman has done with external exertions. It is too late for him to engage in distant projects. I said, He seems to amuse himself quite well, to have his attention fixed and his tranquillity preserved by very small matters. I have tried this, but it would not do with me. Johnson, laughing, Aha! No, sir. It must be born with a man to be contented, to take up with little things. Women, here we go. Women have a great advantage that they may take up with little things without disgracing themselves. A man cannot, except with fiddling. Probably true at that time. Had I learned to fiddle, I should have done nothing else. I answered, Pray, sir, did you ever play on any musical instrument? Johnson answered, No, sir, I once bought me a flaglet, but I never made out a tune. I said, A flaglet, sir? So small an instrument? I would have liked to hear you play on the violoncello. That should have been your instrument. And Johnson answered, Sir, I might as well have played on the violoncello as another, but I should have done nothing else. No, sir, a man would never undertake great things, could he be amused with small. I once tried knotting. Dempster's sister undertook to teach me, but I could not learn it. I said, So, sir, it will be related to pompous narrative. Once for his amusement, he tried knotting, nor did this Hercules disdain the distaff. Johnson answered, Knitting of stockings is a good amusement. As a freeman of Aberdeen, I should be a knitter of stockings. He asked me to go down with him and dine at Mr. Thrale's at Stratham's, to which I agreed. I had lent him an account of Scotland in 1702, written by a man of various inquiry, an English chaplain to a regiment stationed there. Johnson said, It is sad stuff, sir, miserably written, as books in general then were. There is now an elegance of style universally diffused. No man now writes so ill as Marden's Account of the Hebrides is written, not to be confused with Boswell's Journeys to the Hebrides. A man could not write so ill if he should try. Set a merchant's clerk now to write, and he'll do better. Okay, a couple of footnotes here. I skipped over. Number one, footnote after when Boswell said aghast, A flaglet, sir, so small a instrument? When I told this to Miss Seward, she smiled and repeated with admirable readiness from S's in Galatea, Bring me 100 reeds of ample growth to make a pipe for my capacious mouth. Growth, mirth. I don't see how that's rhyming. But hey, who knows? And the other footnote is an account of Scotland was written by, according to a footnote, the Reverend Thomas Moore. The second edition, 1715, gives the author's name. Okay. Johnson talked to me with a serious concern of a certain female friend's, Mrs. Thrale, footnote tells us, laxity of narration and intention to truth. That's one thing we know about her from this book. I am as much vexed, said Johnson, at the ease with which she hears it mentioned to her as at the thing itself. I told her, Madame, you are content to hear every day said to you what the highest of mankind has died for rather than bear. You know, sir, the highest of mankind have died rather than bear to be told they had uttered a falsehood. Do talk to her of it. I am weary. I said, Was not Dr. John Campbell a very inaccurate man in his narrative, sir? He once told me that he drank 13 bottles of a port in a sitting. There's a long footnote about this, but I'll get to that in a second. Johnson answered, Why, sir, I do not know that Campbell ever lied with pen and ink, but you could not entirely depend on anything he told you in conversation if there was fact mixed with it. However, I loved Campbell. He was a solid orthodox man. He had a reverence for religion. Though defective in practice, he was religious in principle, and he did nothing grossly wrong that I have heard. All right, now back to that footnote, which is about drinking 13 bottles of port in a sitting, which is quite a good amount. Lord Macartney observes upon this passage, I have heard him tell many things, which, though embellished by their mode of narrative, had their foundation in truth, but I never remember anything approaching to this. If he had written it, I should have supposed some wag had put the figure of 1 before the 3. I am, however, absolutely certain that Dr. Campbell told me it, and I gave particular attention to it, being myself a lover of wine, and therefore curious to hear whatever is remarkable concerning drinking. There can be no doubt that some men can drink without suffering any injury, such as quantity as to others appears incredible. It is but fair to add that Dr. Campbell told me he took a very long time to this great potation. And I have heard Dr. Johnson say, sir, if a man drinks very slowly and lets one glass evaporate before he takes another, I know not how long he may drink. Dr. Campbell's mentioned a colonel of militia who sat with him all the time and drank equally. All right, so I guess he did drink that much. I told Johnson that I had been present the day before when Mrs. Montague, the literary lady, sent to Miss Reynolds for her picture. She said she had bound up Mr. Gibbons's history without the last 2 offensive chapters. For that, she thought the book so far good, as it gave, in an elegant manner, the substance of the bad writer's Medii Aviae of the Middle Ages, which the late Lord Lyttelton advised her to read. Johnson said, sir, she has not read them. She shows none of this impetuosity to me. She does not know Greek, and I fancy knows little Latin. She is willing you should think she knows them, but she does not say she does. I said, Mr. Harris, who was present, agreed with her. Johnson answered, Harris was laughing at her, sir. Harris is a sound, sullen scholar. He does not like interlopers. Harris, however, is a prig, and a bad prig. Another footnote I'll get to. I looked into his book, and thought he did not understand his own system. I said, he says plain things in a formal and abstract way, to be sure, but his method is good, for to have clear notion upon any subject, we must have recourse to analytic arrangement. Johnson said, sir, it is what everybody does, whatever they will or know, whether they will or no. But sometimes things may be made darker by definition. I see a cow, I define her animal quadrupus ruminus cornetanum, a quadruped which chews the cud and has horns. But a goat ruminates, and a cow may have no horns. Cow is plainer. I said, I think Dr. Franklin's definition of man a good one, a tool-making animal. Johnson answered, but many a man never made a tool, and suppose a man without arms, he could not make a tool. He's got you there, Franklin. Anyway, let's get back to this footnote about Harris being a prig and a bad prig. What my friend meant by these words concerning the amiable philosopher of Salisbury, I am at a loss to understand. A friend suggests that Johnson thought his manner as a writer affected, while at the same time the matter did not compensate for that fault. In short, that he meant to make a remark quite different from that which a celebrated gentleman made on a very eminent physician. He is a coxcomb, but a satisfactory coxcomb. And a kind of a triple footnote thing here. We have an asterisk that tells us the celebrated gentleman is W.G. Hamilton, And the physician he's talking about is Dr. Richard Warren, of course. Obviously, he's the satisfactory coxcomb. All right. Well, that's it for today. Until next time, bye from Boswell land.